Hello, and welcome to the Happiness Telesummit. My name is Erica Glessing, and I am your host. And I have the most beautiful, amazing guest today, Sylvia Puentes. Welcome.
Thank you. So happy to be here. Thank you
I
so much,
know.
Erica.
I love it. Sylvia is an author in a new book called The Energy of Expansion. Sylvia
Woohoo!
is an effervescent international speaker and leader. Ella puede hablar en español e inglés.
Muy
So
bien,
many of
sí.
her classes are taught in both English and Spanish, which is really wonderful. She teaches consciousness around the world. Her energy is contagious, and so is mine, so watch out, everybody. That's so fun. She is a joyful and kind invitation to play with the consciousness, access consciousness tools. And I'm just so happy you're here. I'm so happy we could connect on this Happiness Telesummit. It feels very genuine and authentic because both of us are what we are, right? It's like, it's like people say, "How do you get so happy?" I'm like, I don't know, I just am. I'm gonna throw that at you first, Sylvia. So how is it that you feel like you have this happiness? And tell us
Wow.
just a little bit about that.
Well, it's interesting. If you would have met me maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I don't think that I could have told you that I was a happy being. I think at that point I was still buying that there was upset. I mean, it'd be funny things that I would say would be after I'd talk to someone, I'd come home and I'd say, wow, I feel really bad that, I didn't say this or I said this or I should have stayed longer. I mean, that was my reality at the time. And it was funny because my husband at the time would say things like, he'd like touch my arm. He's like, no, you don't feel bad. But it was almost like reminding me this, whatever I was making up about feeling bad and the regret and the shame that lived in my world didn't allow for the space to be happy or acknowledge that joy that I had. And so maybe about 4 years ago now, I went to my first Access Consciousness class, and there was Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness, in this short hour and a half intro, maybe 2 hours, talking. And as he talked and he said different things, there was these moments where I just would chuckle. I would just laugh at his irreverence or what people would say or what was coming up for me. And I was having a great time, which I didn't think was odd. I was just being me. And then during a break, he comes up to me and he goes, now stop having so much fun. And there was something in how he said it that allowed me to look at myself and go, I am having fun. Not like, and it was interesting because he said it, I don't know, you could have taken it many ways, but it invited me to look at how I was being. And at that moment, and there's been a couple others throughout the work where I've just really begun to acknowledge that joy and that play that lives in my world without any effort that I wasn't always willing to see or be at the space that I am now, if that makes any sense.
Here's one thing that I love about the work you're doing, and the work of Access too. Being the kindness. It feels like, if you stay at the yellow, you don't go through the yellow light, you stop at the yellow light. Like, oh my gosh, you get all this unkindness. It seems like the world, like, if you do this wrong or you park wrong or it's like just this like recipe for people honking at you and having an expectation that you'll behave a certain way. And when I look at that energy of kindness, and I have to tell you, this is an area where I feel I can make a difference at the grocery store. And my kids sometimes get embarrassed because I will just have a conversation with whoever is checking me, and I'll say, I'll really say something like, do you get how special you are? And they'll be like, what? I'll be like, did you forget how amazing you are? And people just crack up, and then it's funny because they don't forget you either.
Right.
So how do you be that joy? How do you find that space of kindness? Like, how do you find that? Because the world doesn't always act in ways that have honor of that or that sanction that.
Well, it's interesting you say that. There was a period of time where I started to notice that something had changed. Like, I started to notice I was waking up happy. Like, I'd wake up and all of a sudden it was like, oh, wow, that chatter I used to have in my head it's not there anymore. Like there was really like this, I jump out of bed and go on. And I was like, so I started to notice what had changed. Because sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes when things change, you forget what it was like before. And so for me, it's like using many of the tools that I've picked up through Access Consciousness, as simple as they may be, but the tools that I'm using now, it's like it now feels awkward or strange to be unkind to me. When I'm judging me or I'm feeling like down and heavy, that feels odd. Which for me, it's like, wow, what would it be like to live in a planet where that was the part that felt unnormal rather than normal? And so, and one of them is like, wow, well, there's so many tools. Which one would I use first? But one is that space of being kind with you is the greatest gift. Like that, I know, like the more that I have allowance for myself in whatever I choose, or if I stop at the yellow light, or if I go, like it's really about that honoring, trust, gratitude, allowance for me. And then from there, I can be anywhere. And that story you're saying about the grocery store, it's like I've walked into grocery stores and all of a sudden I look around and it's like, where is everybody? Like, how often do we walk in the day and we're like, oh, I'm not really here? But it's so evident, I think, in any grocery store, just to walk in and it's like, wow. And there's a story. I actually walked into a grocery store one time and I was already inside and this lady came in and she was this kind of bubbly lady and she stood out in the corner of my eye. I'm like, she's different. Who is she? What is she doing? And a quick thought is like, she's crazy. She's a nut, right? Because she's going aisle through aisle, seeing different people, saying hello. She got to the cash register line. There was a little girl off to the left, and she said hello, and the mother kind of blocked the little girl. It's like, so she wouldn't even look at her because she thought, who's this crazy lady? And then she gets to the register, and her check doesn't clear, but she goes, oh, I have cash. She goes to her car, comes back, and when she left, I thought, that was different. Now, what was that? And I thought, that lady was alive. There was like no judgment in her world. She was smiling and happy, and it looked weird. And it looked weird because no one else was choosing that. And so when you talk about being the difference no matter where you go, if you walk into a grocery store and smile at people, that could be weird, right? Because it's like, who are you? Why are you smiling at me? What do you want? And I think for me, growing up, and it's one of the things that I share in the chapter, is that growing up, I was this kindness. I was this joy. And that when I was being that, it was actually looked at like, well, what do you want? Like they,
Right,
and
right. I read that where you're like, your dad is like saying, okay, what is it you want from me today? How much money do you want or whatever? It's like, we can't just be in that space of I'm just being nice for no reason.
Exactly. And he would say this term in Spanish that's like, what do you want, kiss ass? And after you
Tell me it again. What is it again?
Ay, ¿qué quieres, Barbera? And it's like, what do you want? Brown noser, kiss ass, kind of that energy. And I remember being like, what? And so at a young age, I mean, how many, of their listeners have heard things being repeated at them that ended up turning of who you truly are into something negative? And so I started at a young age going, oh, maybe I do want something. Maybe I do have a hidden agenda. Oh, okay. And then I started playing that role. And so now to actually step into the kindness that I be, it's an incredible gift. I just traveled to another country, and while I was there, I really got to see when you are with people in that space of gratitude, in that space of allowance and kindness, things change in their world. Like not even what you're doing or saying, but just that space that you be. And so that's the invitation I have.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about what happens to reality when you believe in magic? How's that for a question, Sylvia?
Well, sometimes one thing is just for me, just for fun, never tell anyone. Because if you're out creating magic, you're right. To many people out in the world, it doesn't make sense. Looking for the logical, linear, how does that happen? I can't tell you. But the magic, what if the magic truly is when you are the space of kindness and allowance for you, things show up. That space when you're willing to ask for whatever it is, you're willing to ask something to change in your body, you're willing then to ask for more money. When you're that space of joy and happiness, things show up. How? I can't tell you how. I just know they do. So it's like, part of what I think what you're inviting, Erica, in this book and in the summit that's about to, that's
That we're
launching
in.
here,
We're
is
in the
that
summit. This is the
we're in the
summit. The
summit.
people who are
And,
listening are, I have to tell you, I'm going to interrupt you really quick
yeah, no,
because
go.
I had the most amazing thing happen last year. I met a woman named Angela Redmond, and she was an avid Happiness Telesummit listener. She's a
Uh-huh.
ballerina. She's in Australia. So she's, a mom with grown kids. She told me she would listen to the summit interviews on
Uh-huh.
speaker, blasting them throughout her house so she could feel the laughter. She
Mm,
wanted to feel the happiness. She wanted to feel that sense of what the speakers I bring in share, that joy, that just
yeah,
whatever that is, right?
yeah.
And when she told me that, I was just kind of, what? What? And then it's such an amazing story. Angela ended up writing a chapter in the book on receiving that just came out. So
Wow.
just by being part of the Happiness Telesummit, by listening, she
Yeah.
then became a best-selling author, and she hadn't written since sixth grade. And so if you look at like the people who are listening now, I want to invite you to not just listen to Sylvia's words,
Yes.
but to really feel in that space of magic and that feeling of possibility that Sylvia has awakened in herself. Because I love the way that you're sharing your gifts, Sylvia. And I think, I'm thinking the next question I might have for you, it's kind of showing up for me, has to do with the bonds of family. So I want to talk about the bonds of family, and I got a big heaviness around me of my mother's criticism of me, my father's criticism of me. I wasn't enough. I was too much at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I was better than my brother at certain things, and that was just all hell was going to break loose because I'm in my 50s, and at that time the boy was supposed to be the one that shines.
Wow.
And I wasn't. I was the one that was shining, and this was kind of a problem in my family dynamics. And when I look at like some of the things that you just shared about your dad and sort of the cultural feelings of family, I think I wonder what you might share with people that would help them, get through that.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of pieces there, but one of them, you have an incredible group of people presenting, speaking in your summit and in your books. So maybe people have heard these tools, maybe they haven't. But one of the first pieces is that you mentioned it as soon as you started talking about, family and the bonds of family, it started to feel heavy. So what if, that first place to go, wow, this feels heavy. And when things start to feel contracted and heavy, what if that's a clue right there that there's a lie there? And that when there's this lightness and this space in your world, what if that's a clue that there's something true there for you? So through a lot of the work that I do with people around the world, it really is a question of what's true for you. What do you know? So when we talk about what are those bonds that you have with your family? How many decisions, conclusions, judgments have we bought of what family is that actually limit us being more of us?
Hmm.
And here's a big one, and I'm just going to share it. There's been twice in the last couple years where things have come up for certain people in my family. My mother, who I adore, and one of my closest, quote unquote, sisters. And something changed in their world, and they were choosing certain things, and I always played a role in my family. We're like, I'll come and save the day. And so as I started to choose something different, it kind of left them going, what are you doing? We've been counting on you to come in, save the day. And a question that I was asked one time was, are you willing to let them die? With my sister and my mother. And as crazy as that seems, when I chose yes, it felt really light. Like, yeah, I am. And what that began to unravel and unstick and create more space was they had to choose for them. So wherever they made me, the answer, there was now space for them to choose.
Wow.
My sister came out of whatever she was choosing because she chose it. And she told
Wow.
me almost 6 months later, she goes, I thought you had abandoned me. And she goes, but I know you were always there. And so our relationship is different. So really allowing things to
Oh,
change.
I got chills.
Yeah. And, and with my mother too, she was, complaining about my father, this and that. And she actually said, I think the only thing I have left is to kill myself, like to die. And I was like, and I told her and I said, that is a choice. Now, are you choosing that because that's what you would like? Or are you choosing that to get revenge? What would you like to choose as just a choice? And I remember I got off the phone. I thought, oh my God, that was mean. And I thought, no, there was something. I wasn't willing to buy the lie that she was a victim. And and what if that's part of the kindness too? When you're not willing to buy the lie that people are victims. And and next time I saw her, completely different. Back in the space of her joy, back in the space of living. So what exactly changed? I don't know. But the willingness
Wow.
to say, are you willing? Like, what if kindness doesn't always mean you're a doormat, doesn't mean you're always giving? What if kindness can also be being in total allowance of what people choose? And that's honoring of me and of them.
That is
So,
such a beautiful awareness. I love that. I had a similar awareness recently where there's someone in my life that's always unhappy, and I'm always like the one trying to make them happy, like trying to bend over backwards, do cartwheels. What can I do to make that person feel better? And it was one of these calls. I can't remember which one. It was definitely an access call. It was like, what if they needed to be in their misery for whatever healing they needed to experience? And what if that was okay? What if that wasn't wrong? Because one of the things I teach happiness, one of the things I get is, what do I do when the people around me are like naysayers, or
mhm.
feel, they're just kind of like, I'm in a good place, and I go in and I go to work, and then there's this like person who just personifies being grumpy and hating their world. And the answer was really interesting when I started asking more and more questions, and it was like, that's okay.
Yeah,
Like, what if that's okay? What if that's the journey that that person is choosing? And I just go, oh, interesting. Okay. Okay. You're bummed
yes,
out. Okay. And I have to tell you, Sylvia, it was really, I think one of the things that this does, when I look at like you standing there in your space, having changed and morphed the relationship with your family members, that I'm just getting like poder, like I'm just getting like power, like it just feels like it's giving you like more. Do you see
yeah.
that?
I'm not at the effect anymore, like at the effect of running to save. It's more like there's a new space and then I can choose, but it's not they're going to be a certain way because of me, or it just creates a new relationship. Like I really do choose, when I visit, when I call, and it really is out of choice, not out of obligation, not out of I have to or I'm the one. And there's just more lightness and space in my world. There's also something else you said, Erica, when you talked about, when you say you go to work and someone's in their misery and you're choosing to just be you, there's something I've become more and more aware of, and I'm doing my best to try to find words for it. And you also mentioned it at a different moment, but there's an energy we be, like an acoustical vibration that's unspoken, unseen, that's contagious, and people can either choose to tap into it, and we try to put words to it, she's weird, that but you can't deny that there's spaces you go into, that there's people you meet and you're like, oh, that was nice, or oh, like I'm not going there again, right? That there are places and people and you're like, oh, I don't know what's going on, but that was not fun. So what if you choosing to be that, no matter where you go, whether you're in the office, and no matter even what you say, like really it isn't even the words, it really is an energy you be. So when we talk about the energy of expansion, what if the energy you be is the energy of expansion? And so you can be walking in one place and you might see a couple of people turn to look at you because they may be aware of something different. And that can actually invite them to either kind of become aware of that. It's, I don't know if I have words for it, but I've become more and more aware of it, and I'm beginning to hear people say, it's like, wow, what an energy you be. And I was like, what do you mean? So it's just an exploration, like explore. Like when you see someone who's vibrant and excited about living, you know, you might get pissed off, and that's okay too, but what is that there for you? Or you might go, oh, you might leave with a big smile and going, oh, wow, that was really nice. So what if that's your awareness of the energy that person bees, and what can you choose to be out in the world?
Tell me if you could just conjure up, like in your head, something that would allow someone who feels like they're kind of getting a lot of this and they kind of feel pretty good about a lot of things and they're using tools and they feel like they're kind of, but maybe they're feeling like, you know, it's funny without being specific, but is there something that you see sticking people from joy that you can help?
Two things. One of them is, are you willing to be in the question? Like there's something about being in the question of everything that comes up for you that opens you up to new things. Because one of the things, you know, I don't know, just yesterday I was in the office and someone looked at me a certain way and I caught myself, it's like, oh, they looked upset. Like I caught the chatter and I was like, that's really interesting. So there's no question in like, oh, they looked upset. What did I do? What did I? And I was like,
Right. It's an assumption.
exactly. So if you can go into the questions like, oh, what was that? Okay. You know, but really about everything. And so one of the tools that I love to share with people is interesting point of view. I have this point of view. Because what if your point of view does create your reality and how everything shows up? So if you go into your head with the chatter, it's like, oh, he looked upset. It was probably because, and you go into your story because you've got things lined up of why that would make sense. So if you go into your story, there you go. It's this heaviness, kind of weight on you. But if you go, wow, interesting point of view, I have this point of view, that one, he looked upset, that two, he was even looking at me, or whatever it is. So that may be enough to shift it. And this tool I've used, I always tell stories about my son who's now 16, but sometimes that tool of saying, interesting point of view, I have this point of view, sometimes I say it 16, 20 times, and there comes a moment after I say it that long where it's finally like, ah, like there's just this space that opens up, and it's like, there I am. Because it's like the points of views that we have either about ourselves or other people end up creating our relationships, whether it's, you know, either closer relationships or more separations or more judgments. So interesting point of view, I have this point of view is one that I would recommend for anyone to start playing with. And the other one is, oh, there's so many, but what's right about me I'm not getting?
Oh my gosh, I love that one. I haven't, you know, I taught, this is so cool you brought that one up because I have to talk about that one real quick because I have a beautiful daughter named Madeline and she is just amazing and she's just creative, she's funny, she comes up with these ideas that you've just never heard of. She's basically just walking entertainment. She's just one of those kids. She's just always something, you never know what she's going to say.
Yeah.
And so, but sometimes she gets down on herself.
Yeah.
And so she'll just really get down on her. She's only 11, but she'll get really down on herself. And I'll say something like, Madeline, I'll say, what's right about you?
Yeah.
Just that, what's right about you?
Yeah.
And she's on a hockey team and sometimes there's a lot of stuff going on and I'll be like, Madeline, what's right about you? And I love that question, so I'm so glad that you brought that up. And tell us a little bit about the tool, because for some people who've never heard it before,
Yeah.
maybe just break it down really simple, Sylvia, like from, it's the very first time I've ever heard that concept. So really, really take it from, and even if you've heard it a million times, you could learn something.
Oh, and that's great you point out that, Erica, because I have been playing with the tools, you know, for close to 4 years now, and in this period of time, there's still tools now that I'm all, oh, like there's just more awareness about it, more awareness about me and what the question even creates. So one of the things, and all the tools in Access Consciousness are about empowering people to know that they know and to step out of judgment. Like, what if there was no right or wrong or good or bad? So when you ask, what's right about me I'm not getting? Or what's right about this I'm not getting? It's really inviting you to step out of the conclusions and the judgments that you've made about yourself. And as you kind of begin to look at another perspective, that then allows you to have more space and allowance to really see what's in front of you. So, that space of like, wow, oftentimes when we decide that things are what they are and they're not, we can't change them. So when you can step out of the judgment and out of the conclusions of, this is bad, this is wrong, I'm wrong, and you can go, wow, what's right about me that I'm not getting? And begin to see that space. And when you're in space of allowance, then you can choose something different. Then you can actually choose to respond rather than react. And then you can choose to, even stay in it if you would like, but it's from a different space and in a different perspective. And so
That
when
one, oh, sorry. Do you
no,
want
it
to
was just
finish?
the two things. One, when I said earlier about being in the question, and then really not to judge you. Like, how much does judgment actually, it's almost like this trap to keep us from the joy and the happiness we truly be. And I can even begin to perceive the energy on this call. It almost feels like it's getting heavier. But what if that sense might be what we're becoming aware of the conclusions and the decisions and, the judgments we have about ourselves? So what would create space here now? And, one of the things that I use a lot is the clearing statement from Access Consciousness. And if you haven't heard of it, it's actually going to be in my package. I'm going to include an explanation, and there's also explanations all through the internet. But it really is an energetic clearing to have you create more space and allowance. So would it be okay to just give you guys a taste of what that is in case you are feeling this heaviness, to see if we can open that up? Would you be game for that, Erica?
Sure, have fun.
And it really, I love to play with this because it really is like, when you feel that density, what can you do to change it? Because what if that space isn't you? So anywhere you may be judging yourself like, I don't get this, I'm not happy, I'm never going to be happy, would you be willing to destroy and then create everywhere you may have thought that? Whether it was when you were a child, whether it was from another lifetime, whether it was just this morning, would you be willing to destroy and then create that?
Yes.
And anything that doesn't allow that, right, wrong, good, bad, all nine, pipe, pipe, shorts, boys, and beyonds. And
Thank
maybe.
you.
And so that's the clearing
Yeah.
statement. It's, a string of words that begins to clear the energy, but it's like, what if we could go to the point where we created a decision, a limitation, or a lie that ended up not allowing us to choose anything different and clear that? And that's the magic, really, that I find with the Access Consciousness tools. It's like, what's going to create more joy? It's like, wow, what if it's time to let go of the lies? What are the stories that you've thought about yourself that you're willing to let go of now? So it just felt
Beautiful.
like a
Thank
moment to
you.
share that.
Oh, and you mentioned a package, and so why don't you go ahead and share with our audience, if our audience feels that sense that Sylvia might be someone for whom working with Sylvia would bring you joy or bring you more tuned inness to your awesome sauce of you. Sylvia, what do you have for us?
Well, in this package, it was really about, with the chapter being, I almost have to look at the title, but the gift of being you. And, having this being titled Celebrating the Magic of Being You. It's like, what is that space of being you? I know that for myself, it was this question. It was like, what is being me? When we have all that stuff piled on. So this package is really, I created it to begin to, what if we can move all those layers so you can shine and be the magic of you wherever you go? So in the package, I've included what I have is the 5 steps of being more of you every day. So there'll be an MP3 player of that 5 steps, and there are exercises, activities, you might say, that will just open you more up to really begin to acknowledge what is that of you. There'll also be a play sheet, so you'll actually have it in a PDF form as well as an MP3. And then, I just shared one clearing of, a question, and then the clearing statement following to begin to energetically open you up to letting that stuff go and showing up more as you. So I've created what we call a loop, which is that process of energetic clearings with different questions. And when I ask in the loops, and even just a bit ago, will you destroy and uncreate that? The only thing that you can destroy and uncreate is what's not true. So this is an invitation to begin to let go of what you might not even know is there, that energetically will open you up to being more the joy of you. I've also included just a bonus piece of an explanation of the clearing statement. So you'll have that in MP3 and in a PDF form. And then also I created a meditation. And in this meditation, it's just going to walk you through a space of allowing you to tap into the energy that you be. And you can play that before you go to bed, whenever you'd like. So, you know, Erica mentioned, it's like, can you begin to perceive the energy of the kindness of you in the space that you truly be? And this meditation is an invitation to more of that. And then the fifth piece in the package is a 3-part telecall. That's actually in the future. So that'll be scheduled to start on April 20th for 3 Mondays in a row. So if it feels right for you to actually play in this 3-part telecall, and it's called The Kindness with You, and really going through all the steps of looking at what we can undo and unlock of all those lies, limitations, and stories you've bought, that, you know, energetically we can begin to clear to have you show up more as you. And I know that there's a gift there when you show up and be the joy of you, that everything in your life changes. And you begin to really look at like what works for you in your relationships, at work, with your family, that what if that could be a key to creating more joy. So that is the package that I created. And
that is so magic. Thank you, Sylvia. I'm so excited for you. You have this gentle way about you that I just love, and I'm so glad that our paths crossed. And you know, I think you also have a radio show. Why don't you tell everybody about that?
I have 2 radio shows, and one that I do in Spanish. We're a team of 4, and it's just been the most dynamic creation. We do it weekly. We do it for an hour and a half, and there's 4 of us. So that's in Spanish, and that's enriqueciendo, so .com. But where else could I give it to them? Maybe I'll add it somewhere in the package. So okay. There's definitely lots of ways to play with me in Spanish. And then there's an English version or a different radio show that I do with one of my dear friends, Melanie Clampett, who you guys will get to hear or have heard. And we have been playing for several years now together and exploring and expanding and growing in our own lives. And together we come and we play on this radio show called The Colors of Infinite Possibilities.
Ooh,
and we bring these tools, and we bring just the energy we be, and the invitation to what if there's so much more possible out in the world, and what if that is the adventure of living? Like, what else? What else? And so we broadcast right now once a week, and it's we're on Facebook, so you can find us on Facebook as Colors of Infinite Possibilities. If you like our page, you'll get announcements of our radio shows and other goodies. So lots of fun ways to play. And if you know people that are predominantly Spanish speaker or even bilinguals, send them my way. I'm really creating more and more things of in Spanish for people to access these tools and change what isn't working in their life. So
thank you so much. Thank you for your time today. It's just so much fun to play with you.
You are so welcome, Erica. Yeah, and what would it take all of us to be more of that space of allowance and kindness for us? And really, what if that is the gift we can give ourselves and others that's greater than we can imagine? So that's the invitation to everyone.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.